So let us continue with Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics by Dr. Nash. And so far, we have covered a lot of remedies from the Nash Therapeutics, which are very helpful because the way Dr. Nash narrates, he puts in some philosophy, he puts in some materia medica, which is, of course, essential. He puts in some uh, potencies about some remedies, which remedy should follow well. Not everywhere, but where he feels is very essential and very important. And he gives a comparison, which is very important for a homeopath because not many homeopaths do that easily because they don't know what's there in one remedy, what's there in another remedy, what's there in one book, what's there in another book. And if you are a good reader of many books, you will be in a better position to understand the finer differentiations of different remedies and then decide on a remedy. So, Dr. Nash uh, gives us all those differentiations, and that is why reading this book as a beginner or as a professional or as a senior homeopath is very important because you develop your own ideas, and when you see such patients in clinics, you see that exactly what he has mentioned in his clinic. This was 150, 200 years ago, and still it is true. So what he saw and what we see, if it comes on the same page, it is very much, you know, more than coincidental that we get to experience some similar phenomena which he saw and also we are seeing, which is what science is. So let us continue with Leaders in Homeopathic Therapeutics, and on 10th Jan, which is today, we'll take up two remedies which are very important. One remedy is selenium, another is phosphorus. I have earlier started with a plan to take five remedies a day. Sometimes the remedies are too long, so I pick up only few remedies. Mostly, it is a scenario where the trio is explained by Dr. Nash in a series of three remedies, like uh, we read about Naxwamika, Pulsatilla, and a series of remedies. So this is how he gives an explanation, and this is how we should study. So let us pick up two remedies. One remedy is very small, selenium. Another is very huge. It is almost 8 to 10 pages in Dr. Nash's Therapeutics, which is a very small book actually. But 8 to 10 pages of it means that it's 2 pages of or 3 pages of Dr. Kent. But what is interesting is that selenium and phosphorus is described by Dr. Nash after describing a group of metals which we discussed yesterday and a few days before. And we discussed about platina, we discussed about stannum met, how it is differentiated from Argentum Met and so on and so forth. And today we'll take up this continuation of mineral remedy, which is selenium. So he starts off, Dr. Nash starts off this remedy by telling us that this remedy is a very similar remedy to stannum met in terms of weakness. The characteristic condition of weakness in this remedy is very much similar to stannum met, although in stannum met it is more specifically in the chest, but selenium is more generally. So once you have a patient who tells you that there is a lot of weakness, you can just check with him or her about where the weakness is. Is it in a some part, local part, or is it generally present? If you find generally present, well and good, you are there. Easily exhausted from least labor after disease or seminal emissions. This is what Dr. Nash mentions for selenium. And we have read it in our Materia Medica, in our academic sections, where after least emissions he feels very weak. So sexual system is very weak, which is what we know. But going further, what it describes is something which is very beautiful. And he tells us that there is long standing weakness, especially in the face, in the hands, and the thighs. So, the weakness and the muscle wasting is specifically in certain areas. And he gives a comparison with acetic acid. Now, interesting to see, we have not yet mentioned any acid so far in the relationship of selenium, but here he mentions about this emaciation of single parts for acetic acid. So this becomes a very vital component for us to understand that selenium, if it is on par with the acid in some aspects, it definitely means that this remedy needs to be employed in all the cases that have long standing problems. And we have taken up this in the Allen's keynote study streak, where I kept the acid section especially for the last part. So whoever have attended Allen's keynote study streak, I have taken up the remedies in relation to one another. We started with abrotanum, but later on we shifted to Ethusa, Calcarea, Borax, because are the remedies which are very much related to each other. So acids were taken up at the extreme end of Allen's keynote study streak, and that is where acid is employed in our clinics at the extreme end of all the disease processes. Or perhaps you have given all the remedies and you are stuck up, or the patient is reporting to you in the last stages of his disease, or he's coming to you after long standing problem. There can be variations. And if there is long standing struggle and long standing problem which is going on since a long time, acids are mentioned. So since we are discussing selenium, not to divert from the topic, selenium is mentioned in relation with acetic acid for emaciation in certain parts, hands, face, thighs. And then Dr. Nash tells us that there is constipation in this remedy, which has a typical mechanical removal of the stools by hand, which is what we also see in the remedy sanicula. And if you have attended Allen's keynote study streak, you will see that I had mentioned sanicula is like a composition of various remedies: natramur, calcarea carb, graphitis, antimcrude, chamomilla, sina, tuberculinum. It is a combination of all the remedies, something up from each remedy which is coming and contributing to its nature of sanicula. Over here, sanicula and selenium are related to each other in terms of stools. And Dr. Nash goes further to describe that the local weakness is so profound, apart from the general weakness, that there is involuntary urine, and especially that is seen when walking, urinating, or when passing stool. If it is while dribbling, the remedy is sarsaparilla. If it is while doing all such activities, it is selenium. And next, in the last part of the selenium as a remedy, Dr. Nash describes that the bad effects of tea drinking needs to be remedied with one of the thought given to selenium. I have often given to such patients Dioscoria, and it has helped a lot to such patients. Selenium can be thought if there is general weakness. There is another interesting symptom which Dr. Nash describes, and that is your observation. If a person is clearing his throat before speaking and then he speaks, that becomes a key indication for prescribing selenium. And if he does this before singing all the time, many singers do that. But if there is general weakness or the disease pattern that we see, selenium is very much indicated. A key symptom of selenium, Dr. Nash describes, is that he's forgetful in business. During the day when he is at his work, he keeps on forgetting things here and there. And he tells us that I don't remember this, I don't remember that. And when he goes to sleep, he dreams about those things which he has forgotten. So Dr. Ruturaj, ऐसा symptoms spongia में भी है, rumex, you are right. It is there in argentum metallicum also. It is there in selenium. It is there in spongia. It is there in rumex. So the differentiation will lie in other areas where uh, you need to decide upon expectoration, type of expectoration, or modality, something like that. But this is just a general understanding of the remedy selenium, which Dr. Nash explains in continuation with what thought he has for this particular remedy. So, Dr. Nash finishes this explanation of selenium by telling us that he has not used this remedy below the 200. So, many places he gives us examples of the potencies he used, or what were available with him, what were not available with him, and what he wished to experiment because he had no chance. Next remedy we'll discuss is phosphorus. Now, this remedy was extensively described by Dr. Nash. I'll try my best to replicate what he says and how we can imbibe what he, mentioned in his book, and what we can clinically see many times again and again. He starts off with telling us that this remedy, phosphorus, is one of the trio of burning, and we all know other two being arsenic and sulfur. But phosphorus burning, Dr. Nash tells us, is very subjective, and the nervous system has a very strong action on its influence. So you will see that there is burning, there is oversensitiveness. This will be the phase for many of the patients, and Dr. Nash describes that this is the functional level problem. It will come before the phase of organic changes. So in organic changes, we will see that there is loss of motion, loss of sensation, loss of sensitiveness. Whereas in the functional levels, we will see phosphorus patients, and most of the patients will be in this phase where there will be burning and oversensitiveness for a long time, like say 4 years, 5 years, 7 years. They will be in this phase. If the changes are rapidly moving into organic level changes, you will see loss of motion, loss of sensation, and loss of sensitiveness. I want all homeopaths, and this is our job in our clinics when we see patients, to understand what patients are in functional level and what patients are in pathological or organic level changes. Once you understand this, your job to prescribe remedies becomes very easier, and your job to help the patient understand what the disease is and at what level he is, how you are treating him, becomes very easier. And if we know this from the different remedies about, and of course this comes from provings, from seeing the remedies, materia medica in different books, and I'm bringing out something very interesting in 2025 for all the attendees and all the followers who are following Homeo Setu on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, every social media, trying my best to contribute about how you will see functional level changes, pathological level changes, how you will understand the difference, and where will you prescribe what remedy. It's going to be interesting, so stay tuned. But continuing with the remedy phosphorus, we'll see that there is functional level changes which will have burning and oversensitiveness for a long time, and then you will have organic changes which will be having loss of motion, loss of sensation, and loss of sensitiveness. And then Dr. Nash describes that there is a kind of a lid affections which we always see. Upper lid is Kalika, lower lid is Apis, and both the leads, if they are involved, is phosphorus. This goes without saying, and he goes further to tell us that phosphorus is a remedy for blood which cannot clot anymore, and that's the reason there keeps on happening purpura hemorrhagica. So he describes an entire condition of how the blood corpuscles will be, and how the remedy phosphorus has affected on the circulatory system and the blood corpuscles per se. So I want all homeopaths and every one of you to read Dr. Nash's therapeutics, because the nitty gritty things that he gives about each remedy and the confidence he imbibes in each paragraph is undoubtedly the best to give you the push for a few years into homeopathy seriously and confidently, which is very essential for all beginner homeopaths. So Dr. Nash goes further after the purpura hemorrhagica and tells us that there is affections of the bones, lower jaw, and he gives us a case of caries of tibia which he cured. He tells us that lower jaw not specifically, but bones specifically, phosphorus acts well. And again, he goes back to the term which he used a few minutes ago in the previous paragraphs about the functional and organic level changes, and he tells us that phosphorus belongs to a stage of irritation in the brain and the nervous system, which, if not attended, goes on to the organic changes. So, all homeopaths need to understand the level of each remedy and the level of the presentation of symptoms. If it is more external and more sensations, it will be soric, no doubt about it. We all know, but that will be functional level changes. If it is localizing into an organ, it is organic changes, and the sensations will be very less obtained. So, your remedy, of course, the same remedy may work, but it will help you understand the level of disease and the potency and the repetition that you will be able to give to the remedy. So good to see so many people who have joined on Instagram today, and I hope we can, you know, build this up to help everyone study uh, Dr. Nash's therapeutics one book at a time, of course. Make sure that you read one remedy or three remedies or five remedies. Commit yourself to certain number and fulfill that number every day for the next 12 months of your life to change your practice. We are at the Nash Therapeutics Remedy Phosphorus. We have so far in the 4 5 months also covered Allen's keynote study stick, one remedy per day. Nowadays, we are doing Nash Therapeutics, five remedies, three remedies, two remedies every day, thrice a week. And we are at this point where Dr. Nash talks about the difference of level of action of phosphorus in functional and organic level changes. So, Dr. Nash further prescribes about many types of vertigo. It's difficult to treat. We saw that in Ponayam remedy. If you have had a chance to treat a case of vertigo, and if you have treated vertigo, then I must tell you that I must actually give you a handshake, because it is one of the most difficult things to treat. You need to know the cause. You need to understand the patient, what he is telling. where are his key modalities and how did the problem start, whether it is vestibular, whether it is from the brain, base of the brain, or is it from the systemic disturbance. It is not so easy to treat vertigo. Dr. Nash gives us a very elaborate repertory, small repertory in his Materia Medica in the Remedy Conam. We spoke that few days ago. And today he gives us an explanation of phosphorus, the remedy that we are discussing. He tells us that this is a remedy which he uses in all the cases of vertigo of aged. Heat comes from the spine. That will be the key symptom, and there will be deafness in most of the cases. He goes on further to describe that there are many types of vertigo, and every type will be covered by phosphorus. If you don't know what to give in certain remedies, maybe if you see the age, Conam and phosphorus can be one of the top remedies that you can think of. But try to individualize if you can, and try to go through the repertory that Dr. Nash gives in the Remedy Conayam, in the book per se, and not in any, it's not available in any program as such. So, Dr. Nash tells us that phosphorus is a remedy which he gives in all the cases of nose affections, also, where the small quantity of nasal discharge keeps on happening and the handkerchief becomes bloody. And then he goes on further to describe the gastric symptoms. So, I would say that this is one of the only remedies where he goes from mind, head, nose, ear, mouth, throat, and then anal region, and then female reproductive system, and all the other systems. So far, in all the remedies, he would either pick up just something which is very peculiar. He would give some idea about where to use, how to use, and if he didn't knew, he would be open to say that this remedy needs to be clinically explored, like how he said in Calimure, Arania diadema, Mygale, Tarantula. All those remedies were new in his time in 1890s and 1900. So for phosphorus, Dr. Nash tells us that the remedy is very good to act in gastric spear, and he gives a very beautiful description which you must hear it at once. The quote exactly goes like that: the food comes up as if it was never swallowed. So whenever you will hear the patient say that खाना जैसे खाया वैसे ही बाहर आ गया, as soon as we ate it came out exactly as it is, that is phosphorus for you, my friends. So Dr. Nash just doesn't give you ideas of how he practiced, why, and which remedy to give, but he also gives us beautiful descriptions which you can evidently see in clinic. Spasmodic stricture of esophagus is the condition he mentions, where he saw this, that food is swallowed and it comes up rapidly as if it was never swallowed. But this can also be the case where there is GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease, or some acute gastritis which happens. The food goes and comes out immediately as it is, and hungry soon after eating. We'll see this in most of the cases of diabetes. No wonder phosphorus can be one of the sheet anchors and key remedy in all the cases of diabetes. So do remember it. He gives a differential remedies, that is iodine, chelidonium, petroleum, and anacardium. And going further, he describes the abnormal craving for salt can be remedied with phosphorus, and there is gone sensation. Phosphorus, ignatia, hydrastis, sepia are the remedies that you will come across telling clearly in our clinics that there is an empty feeling in the stomach. How you will get this empty feeling? Patients are not going to tell you directly, and I'm telling you why. Because they have never experienced this vague sensation. What you can do is, after you take the entire case, you can go to the, you know gastric spear of the patient, ask him few key symptoms, and again confirm from him, do you have this feeling of gone sensation or empty sensation? And if he tells you yes, the remedies you can decide is phosphorus, ignatia, hydrastis, or sepia. And the interesting part, what Dr. Nash tells us, and this will be clinically seen by many of us, phosphorus has empty gone feeling from the stomach, from the mouth to the stomach to the inner region. Everywhere the empty feeling will be there. If there is fearfulness, patients will tell you, and I have confirmed this from many patients that where do you feel fearful the most when you have some fear or bad news happening? Some patients will tell you chest. It's okay, it's very common. But if they tell you that it is an abdomen, you will have the remedies calica, miserium, argentum nitricum. These remedies will feel in the stomach mostly. In fact, it will be phosphorus also. Same is the case with gone sensation. You will get it confirmed at the end when you're trying to finalize the remedy. This is what is the clinical explanation of the symptom, which is gone sensation. Many times, sometimes the patients will tell you, but many times you will get this confirmatory symptom at the end. Let's go further. What Dr. Nash describes, that females who are bound to bleed, they have vicarious hemorrhages. This phosphorus is a remedy which you can employ. Respiratory system, wherever in coughs or difficult cases of respiratory symptoms, you will see that there is aconite or spongia you have given to the patient and you have failed. Phosphorus is the remedy that you can think of. So many types of modalities of cough, phosphorus can be employed, just like you can employ phosphorus in vertigo cases. And then Dr. Nash goes further to describe the respiratory system in detail. Now, it's very difficult for a homeopath to get a case of proper pneumonia or proper tuberculosis, but Dr. Nash had the opportunity to, you know, get these cases in his clinic, and he tells us that if there is no hepatization which has developed, or if the hepatization has completed, you can employ phosphorus. He tells us that if after the hepatization has started to break, you can employ the remedy entimtard sulfur lycophosphorus. For a homeopath who is not seeing pneumonia patients too often, or maybe perhaps would see now that a new virus has been introduced, or you know which has been seen, this can be a good remedy to employ and get a chance. For me, in the COVID patients, phosphorus was a remedy that helped most of the patients. So you can benefit it similarly. Similarly, Dr. Nash gives us the details of how phosphorus can help in all the cases of uh, tuberculosis, and burning in the spots in the back is the concomitant symptom that you will see in all the respiratory symptoms. If you have attended lectures on platina and zincum, you will see that this symptom was there. In fact, platina, yesterday only we covered. Burning along the length of the spine was one of the key symptoms in one case of insanity cured by Dr. Nash. So, last but not the least, Dr. Nash tells us that if the patient comes to you and he has burning feeling in the hands, the remedy is phosphorus. Burning in the feet, we always think of sulfur, but burning in the hands is phosphorus. So, in all the remedies that Dr. Nash describes, he gives us this clear differentiation between one remedy and the other remedy. How this remedy is different from the other remedy, and that is very important for each homeopath to understand the differentiation. And next, he goes on to describe that how calcarea carb can have the tendency to grow fat, whereas phosphorus can have the tendency to grow tall like calcarea phos. And this comes from calcarea. The phosphorus elements goes in the calcarea phos to give this element of tendency to grow tall. So we come to an end. Those who have joined late can get a chance to go through the session again entirely. It's a very nice you know session which we took on selenium and phosphorus by Dr. Nash. What we can clinically see, how you will observe certain symptoms, what he has mentioned. He gives us few cases in selenium and phosphorus, how it helps. And for those who are continually joining us and learning through this ID, this profile, stay tuned on WhatsApp channel, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, YouTube, everywhere. Some good learning is going to happen in 2025, which is going to transform your homeopathic practice clinically and practically.